UNESCO has added new heritage sites to its infamous list, but the White House has announced plans to pull out of the organisation. Harriet, what's the story?
Well, it's a United Nations body. It's the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization.
Ping!
And what it
1 point to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been practicing that actually. It's mainly known for being responsible for choosing and protecting the kind of more than 1,200 World Heritage sites, which are all around the world in more than 165 countries. So those are cultural or natural landmarks that have outstanding historical or cultural values. So things like Yellowstone National Park, Machu Picchu, the Acropolis in Athens, the Great Barrier Reef, the Lake District, the Tower of London, the City of Bath, actually.
That's a weird one, I always think. You can't put a whole city in, I don't think. I mean, Pompeii, okay.
I think it's a really interesting one, actually. But this United Nations body was founded in 1945 after the Second World War with kind of a peacekeeping function. So the idea is to promote peace and international cooperation in education and sciences and culture through dialogue and mutual understanding. So it also has a big cultural and educational program to kind of promote dialogue between cultures.
Which is something that a lot of people frankly don't know about or understand, right? They think UNESCO and they think about the World Heritage stuff like we've just been saying, and that maybe goes to the heart of this issue we're about to explore. But what's happened this week?
Well, this week, the Trump administration has confirmed that the US will be pulling out of UNESCO only 2 years after it rejoined. So this is actually the second time that Trump has pulled the US out of UNESCO. But this time, the White House said that UNESCO works to advance divisive social and cultural causes and maintains an outsized focus on the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. And the White House deputy spokesperson said that UNESCO supports woke, divisive, cultural and social causes that are out of step with the common sense policies Americans voted for.
Felicity, have you had a look at any of these policies that they might be referring to, and do you understand where they're coming from?
I mean, Trump isn't the first person to have withdrawn. So in 1983, Ronald Reagan, his administration withdrew because he said UNESCO had an anti-Western bias and has extraneously politicized virtually every subject it deals with. Obama also withdrew its funding, and that was over anti-Israel bias, which I think is an issue again, and it's over sort of making recognizing Palestine as a state and that sort of thing. In the UK, Margaret Thatcher pulled the UK out of UNESCO, and Penny Mordaunt was talking about leaving in 2018. So it's certainly, Trump isn't the first person to have thought there is something problematic with this organization, and maybe we shouldn't be part of it. I mean, when he says it's woke, I mean, it depends how you define woke, really. I think more people would have an issue with it for being bloated and ineffective. I couldn't immediately see how it was woke. But I mean, it plays very well with his voter base, and it's part of the president's drive to pull the US out of a series of global bodies, including the World Health Organization, halting funding to the Palestinian Relief Agency, pulling the US out of the Paris Climate Agreement. And when you look at what he's done with US aid, which has massively pulled that back from countries, which I would argue is more troubling than UNESCO, which I can see that there are definitely problems with UNESCO. I can see why you would want out, really.
Well, I tried to approach this, impartially as ever. I'm not generally a big fan of America First, so if I had a bias, it would be to think that the Trump government had pushed this too far. But, Jamie, I looked into some of the things that UNESCO have been doing recently. One such is the Gender Equality Quest in Video Games, a global overview of gender dynamics in video gaming. That does, and maybe it is because I, as I was saying to Harriet, didn't have an appreciation of UNESCO's historical role in cultural conversations beyond monuments and stuff, but I did look at that and think, sure, but why are UNESCO funding that? Like, that is not the same as protecting Stonehenge, is it? That seems like something a different body should be doing, like something about women's rights, not UNESCO.
I'm going to shock you here. About 10 years ago, I was part of the Global Alliance on Media and Gender for UNESCO.
Wow, so many hidden folds to your chest of background.
I went to Geneva for like 3 times, and I was pretty bloated, to use Felicity's term, after all the fondue that I was having there. But the point of the body that I was sitting on as in part of the International Steering Committee was about helping equality in the media. To be honest, a lot of the stuff that UNESCO does, you'd struggle to, I mean, you've picked out obviously a fun one with the video games, but you would struggle to say that it's not important to have more cross-cultural communication. It goes back to what we were saying about soft power and the way that the UK, for example, has really lost a lot of its soft power. A lot of the time, countries that are at war or not talking to each other won't talk to each other at the UN about serious things, quote unquote serious things, but they will talk to each other behind the scenes about things that are culturally important or that they share cultural values on. So a lot of the time, backdoor channels such as UNESCO are so important for getting two sides that are at war or against each other to be in contact. And yes, the meeting might be about gender equality in video games, but ultimately the fact that they're talking to each other and working together on stuff like this is massively important for keeping channels open and discussions open.
I mean, that's really interesting, but why not keep the channels open but have the conversation ostensibly about, you know, protecting stone murals, which is what it's for?
Yeah, I mean, UNESCO obviously has a massive purview in terms of what it can talk about and what it's interested in. And that's to do with the kind of levels of funding and is chosen by, you know, the people at the top of the UN. And surprise, surprise, it's a massive almost like civil service organization. And it loves to give itself more jobs to do that can take lots of time and doesn't actually get very far. Believe me, I have sat on those meetings. I know that is the case. But I would say that there is a benefit to being part of UNESCO and being involved in the conversations rather than pulling yourself out.
Felicity.
I mean, it's also exacerbated tensions between countries. So it doesn't just work as this lovely conversation where everyone gets together and talks about global heritage. China and India filed rival claims over Tibetan medicine. Japan withheld funding after documents on the 1937 Nanjing massacre in China were added to UNESCO's Memory of the World list. And like it's hit some real bum notes. In 2012, it elected Syria to a panel to judge human rights abuses. That was when Assad was in charge. So, I mean, it has also exacerbated tensions between countries. And, you know, it's also outrage. It knocked Liverpool off its list of UNESCO World Heritage in 2021 because it decided that building a football stadium in Everton meant that it could no longer qualify as a World Heritage Site. And Liverpudlians, well, actually, I'm not sure Liverpudlians really cared because they thought, well, people will still come and visit us for the Beatles and the Liver building and the Three Graces and Penny Lane, etc., etc. But I think there was a sense of outrage that Liverpool wanted to modernise and, you know, a bunch of people who, you know, hadn't visited Liverpool in 10 years decided that it was no longer worthy of a World Heritage Site.
How has UNESCO responded to all of this, Harriet, given that America has withdrawn twice before? They were presumably prepared for this possibility.
Well, firstly, I've got a personal connection like Jamie as well. So my dad actually works in World Heritage, and he's also from Liverpool. So it's not 100% true that nobody who works in World Heritage ever went to Liverpool to look at that.
Felicity, are you the president of the United States of America? Because then we've got the hat trick. Everyone's associated with this story.
I might be. I should be.
You'd be doing a better job. But in terms of how UNESCO has responded, obviously it's going to be a massive blow to UNESCO's work, particularly in terms of all of the sites, all of the World Heritage sites that there are in the US. And there are 26, and they're very, very, very important. But they have also said that they have been braced for this departure because, as we said, Trump has withdrawn once before, and the US only provides about 8% of its total budget. So it's actually like a less severe departure for UNESCO than the US departure from, for example, the World Health Organization, which the US is the biggest financial backer. But in terms of finances, if we're talking about the advantages of being a member of UNESCO, the UK, for example, contributes roughly £11 million per year, and it gets about £100 million added value to the economy from the designation of World Heritage Sites. So there is an extraordinarily large net economic benefit to being a member of UNESCO.
Yeah, so I guess what's interesting is whether it matters, Jamie, though, whether America's part of the organisation or not in terms of that economic benefit. People will always want to go to Yellowstone, and actually presumably UNESCO are not going to suddenly say, oh, Yellowstone's not part of our heritage list. I mean, it clearly is, even if America aren't contributing.
Not unless they build a football stadium in the middle of Yellowstone, and suddenly people are going to fall over themselves. No, I think the broader. I mean, obviously they've made a point. It's a good PR win for Trump. It fits in with their America First ideology, as we've discussed. I mean, Obama pulled out funding in 2011 because of the Palestine Israel stuff.
The accusation is that they're anti-Israel, but that comes from specifically them being the first body to admit Palestine.
Yeah, Palestine became a full member of UNESCO in 2011, and so the Obama administration stopped providing funding to the organization because it was barred to do so by US law. So I mean, yeah, we've discussed the ways in which it obviously is a good win. I think if you take a kind of macro view, where it looks to be another way for China to kind of continue to push its tentacles out into they've been looking to replace a lot of what the US does in the United Nations, and UNESCO is no different, and China is kind of filling the vacuum that is being left by the US at the UN, doing a lot of brokering behind the scenes for conversations, particularly when it comes to foreign policy, because they can provide a kind of opposite point to where the US were on a lot of it. So yeah, I mean, it's while on the face of it, it's like this is a story about, the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's actually got a much wider repercussions for the kind of future of geopolitics, I think.
Also for the future of AI as well. I think something that a lot of people don't realize is that UNESCO is the UN agency in charge of setting artificial intelligence guidelines.
Like, why? That just seems, again,
because
weird, right?
It's science, education, and culture.
But then there must be other organisations who are dealing with AI, who are talking between countries. Why on earth would you need UNESCO?
I think every single organisation in every single world body is dealing with AI. But
exactly.
Just to be specific, this is the UN agency in charge of setting the UN's artificial intelligence guidelines, which makes this really important that China has effectively replaced the US, not just in terms of financially. So China has taken the place of the US for the biggest financial backer of UNESCO. Also, its deputy director general is a Chinese official now. It recently, this month, got its 60th World Heritage Site, which means that now China is tied with Italy for the top slot for all World Heritage Sites.
What can it do? As an organisation, what can it actually do? I mean, even when it comes to World Heritage Sites, it doesn't really have any power. Like, you saw the Taliban in 2001 demolish the Buddhas, and no one could do anything about it. And that's what it's famous for, is the World Heritage Sites.
There is a big, as Jamie was explaining, there is a big element of soft power, but there is also a big element about UNESCO has quite a lot of power over deciding what counts as history and what counts as culture. So, for example, UNESCO has also given a lot of support to major projects like the Belt and Road Initiative, which has huge economic impact in Africa, in Latin America, and around the world. Beijing's also really lobbied hard for these World Heritage Sites designations, and some of them are in like oppressed regions like Tibet, like Felicity was saying, like in Tibet. So locals have said that to get this kind of World Heritage designation would be to undermine what they're saying about the oppression and control their culture and history.
But I think Felicity's point is a good one, though, about what is the point of these bodies, and like what is the point of the UN, and what is the point of UNESCO. Look at the UN. It's like that they can sit around and put out, another accord saying that they are against the war in Ukraine and it doesn't make a difference, or they demand a ceasefire in Palestine and it doesn't make a difference. Actually, this rules-based order that we've kind of grown up on, it doesn't. People don't care about it anymore.
Well,
and
but on culture, there is an opportunity, isn't there? I mean, I think, the discussion about what's the point of the UN is a bigger one, probably for another day. But on the point of culture, that's the whole, to me, that was the point, is here's the thing everyone can agree, is that even if you betray human rights, when you bomb a city, you shouldn't bomb the culture that was put there 2,000 years ago. Everyone used to agree on that. And the issue is that they've gone beyond that brief.
Like, they're not going to bomb it because they've got a video games wing or because they're talking about AI.
No, but I think the idea, I suppose, whether or not it actually is the reality, I think that the idea is that if you designate sites, like, for example, the city of Palmyra in Syria, if you designate sites as World Heritage, and that doesn't just include economic protection and support. It does also include massive amounts of international recognition and contributes to a wider conversation about protecting certain cultural heritage sites. So
You're saying this goes beyond this particular ethnic group that you're killing and is actually everyone's culture and heritage.
I think that there are very, very legitimate criticisms to be made about the funding issues, the bloating issues, the effectiveness of certain declarations or certain edicts that don't prevent war and don't do this, do that. Absolutely 100%. But at least the purpose, the idea underpinning this organization of promoting dialogue through culture and a shared appreciation of natural and historical value, I think we can all agree that it is a good idea.
Inevitably, what's going to happen next, though, Felicity, surely, is that at some point, I'm not saying in the next election, but, perhaps the one after that, the Democrats will get a president and then they'll reverse it again, won't they? I mean, that's what's going to happen.
Yes, I mean, that's what happened when Biden was in power. He reversed it. But I think they were then in arrears and America had to pay like millions of pounds back into the organisation. So I guess it's that constant flip-flopping. And that's why, as Harriet was saying, it came as no surprise to UNESCO that this was going to happen. It wasn't really a surprise to anyone that Trump was going to do this. But yeah, I'm sure it will just flip-flop back when... Well, I mean, if there is ever a Democrat president who comes back. But yeah, we'll have to see.